Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling's Additional Attack 2025 had a problem, and the problem was simple. They made you sit through a majority of bad to mediocre wrestling before they gave you anything worth watching. Now, the show was structured correctly, building towards to the main event, but the gap between what came before and what the main event delivered was so wide that one great match couldn't save it. Mifu Shida and Ren Kanatsu versus Chika, Manase, and Kira Soma opened up the show, and this was 1 star. Chika and Kira won with a Samoan drop, and this was just your typical TJPW opener, which means it was short and ended before anything could work. Now, these matches are designed to get the show started and pop the crowd, and that's pretty much what this was. But the problem is, when you don't give people any time, there's no room to build anything or get any real work in. So nothing worked because nothing had a chance to work. They went out there, did a few things, hit the finish, and that was it. It served its purpose, but there's no way to rate something like this higher when it's over before it starts. The DDT Iron Man Heavy Title 5-Way went up next, with Mahiro Kiro defending against Raku, Palm Hirajaku, Susume, and Kai Toribami. Now, Karu, she retained after pinning Palm, who slipped on a loose turnbuckle pad, and this was 1 1/4 star. Now, this is your typical Iron Man title comedy stuff here, when Palm tied a turnbuckle pad to herself and said that she was the corner, which is kind of the thing that this build is built around. And they pretty much worked in a mix of everyone in at different segments here. Pretty much just goofy comedy throughout. Now, it's harmless stuff, don't get me wrong. And I get where they're going with this, as usual with TJPW, and why people like this stuff. But for me, it's not my thing. Now, when you have 5 people in there doing comedy spots, there's only so much you can do. And this is what you got. It is what it is. Then they went into 3 level up series matches, back to back to back. And this is where the show really struggled here. Miyu Mashita versus Shino Suzuki went 1 1/4 stars, with Miyu getting the win with a skull kick. Now, this is your basic veteran ace against a 2-year wrestler type of match, so you knew it wasn't going to go long. The story that they told was the possibility of Shino getting the upset win, and Shino tried to make people believe that she had a chance of winning, and Miyu carried the match to make that work. What separated this from the opener was that they kept it straightforward. Not much goofy stuff for the most part. And when you have a wrestler who's only been in the business for 2 years against someone like Miyu, you're limited in what you can do. So they worked in within those limitations and gave Shino a chance to show something here. But at the end of the day, it was a short match designed to get Miyu to win. Shoko Nakajima versus Yuta Takami went 1 1/2 star, with Shoko getting the win with a bridge variation. Now, this was also part of the Level Up series, and with Yuta, she's 18 years old with only 1 year of experience. So you can understand why this was short as well. What made this slightly better than the Miyu match, though, was that they got a bit more time here, and Shoko led the way throughout. So when you have someone this green, that's what you need. A veteran who can guide them through and make it work here. Now, Yuta, I thought she was fine, but nothing particularly stood out here. Now, granted, she's only been in the business for a short amount of time, so you're not expecting much. And Shoko did what she needed to do, which is keep it simple, and got her through it. Mizuki versus Haru Kashiro went 2 stars here, and this was the best match of the Level Up series, with Mizuki getting the win with a cutie special. Now, Haru, she's 17 years old with 2 years of experience. And what separated this from the other Level Up matches was simple. They had more time, and Mizuki made it more competitive here. The previous matches with Miyu and Shoko were shorter and more one-sided. But here, Mizuki let Haru get more in and treated her somewhat like a real opponent. That's what pushed this to 2 stars when the others were in that 1 1/4, 1 1/2 range. So when you give these young wrestlers a bit more time and don't just have them there to lose quickly, you can get something better out of it. Still, not a great match, but it was the best of this series. The problem with having 3 Level Up series in a row is that you're watching developmental talent for a significant portion of the show. These matches serve a purpose for TJPW's future, yes, but they're not going to deliver quality that carries a card. Hyper Misao versus Yuki Arai was a match that went 11 minutes, with Yuki getting the win. All this was just a segment where they did a game show format like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, in which whenever there's a 2-count fall or whatever the case, they stop the match and get asked a personal question about their opponent. Questions like their zodiac signs, things like that. They miss actual wrestling with the comedy segments here throughout, and as usual, it's your typical goofy stuff. Again, not my thing, but the crowd enjoyed this. So when you're stopping the match every time there's a near fall or do a trivia question, you're not really building anything wrestling-wise. It's pretty much entertainment, not a wrestling match, which for me is why I can't rate this. So if you're into this type of thing, you'll probably have a good time watching it. If not, you'll be sitting through 11 minutes waiting for this to end. So at this point, you watch 6 matches and a segment, and the best thing you've seen is a 2-star level up match. That's the problem with this show. Endo defended the International Princess title against Alice Crowley and retained with a reverse TKO, and this went 2.5 stars. This was the best I've seen Crowley has looked, and the reason for that is that Endo led the way and carried this match effectively. This is the power of people going to Japan. The level gets stepped up a little bit, and you can improve with time. And when you have low expectations going in, and Crowley looks better because Endo is leading the way, that's what made this at least a nice, competent matchup here. What separated this from the earlier matches was simple: time, structure, and pacing. They actually got time to work and build something instead of being rushed through in a few minutes here. Endo did what a champion should do, which is make her opponent look better than what they normally would. Now, it's still only 2.5 stars, but it was the best match on the show up to this point. Wakana Uhura and Yuki Kamifuku of Ober retained the Princess Tag Team titles against Toga and Manase with the sushi roll, and this was 2 3/4 stars. The problem here was that it was starting to get good in the middle part, then it ended. They didn't give them long enough here. Now, this was the highest rated match before the main event because of time and structure, and they got more than the previous matches did and were able to build something. But just when the middle part was clicking and you thought they might actually get somewhere, they went home. When you cut a tag title match short like this, you're not getting the full potential out of it. They had something going and then wrapped it up before it could develop into something anything better. It's a little bit frustrating because you see where it was headed, but they didn't let them get there. Miu Watanabe defended the Princess of Princess title against Yuki Aino and retained with the spin, and this went a solid 4 stars. I thought this was a great match. Everything worked here. They got the time that they needed. The structure was there, and both women did very, very well here in this match. This was a battle of respect for the top title, and they delivered. When you compare this to everything else on the show, the difference was night and day. The tag title match that was started got somewhere before it ended too soon, but then they gave them long enough to actually build something to pay it off with this match. Both Miyu and Yuki worked hard here and put together the best match on the card by a significant margin. This is what a main event should be. They had the time, had the structure, and they executed. The issue is one 4-star match can't carry an entire show when everything else ranges from bad to barely acceptable. You had 6 matches rated 2 stars or below before you got to anything substantial. The first half was pretty brutal. By the time you get to the main event, it's pretty much too late. The damage is already done. The show structure was correct, building towards the main event, but the execution failed because they didn't give you enough quality along the way. The main event saved this from being a complete disaster, but it couldn't save it from being a very mid-show overall. I give this a 6.5 out of 10. Not recommended.